Hey guys, thanks for watching my beer channel. My name is Andy. I'm going to show you how to make a yeast starter today. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube on how to make a yeast starter, but a couple of them are a little bit off in the information. So you want to start with 2 cups of water or 4 cups of water. And if you do 2 cups of water, you want to do a half cup DME. So if you do 4 cups of water, you want to do a 1 cup of DME. So basically you just want to use a quarter of DME of what you use for water. So that's your ratio you want to use. So I'm going to use two cups of water. And you want to boil this. And then you want to use 1 cup of DME, or a half cup of DME. So this stuff's like super sticky once you get it wet, so you gotta be careful, but not to spill it all over the place. And the reason you want to use this ratio is because you want your starter to be 1040, around 1040 gravity. And the reason for that is you don't want your yeast actually fermenting the wort. You want it to reproduce in there. So anything above 1040, 1045, pushing it, they will sense that there's more sugar in your wort, and instead of reproducing, they will go into feeding mode, and you don't want that because then they stop reproducing. So that's why you want to keep your gravity at 1035 to 1045 in there. So this ratio will help you do that. You'll see a lot of guys say you want your yeast to ferment and reproduce. You don't want your yeast to ferment. When you put it in the starter, when you put it in the flask overnight, around 18 hours is perfect. But you might not see too much action. So it's not like a beer where you're going to be like, oh, it's fermenting, I can see all the krausen happening. You might not see that. You might see a little bit of bubbles, but that's fine. Don't even worry about it because your yeast are reproducing. They're not fermenting. So once this gets a little warm, up to boiling, close to boiling, I dump in my DME, stir it up a little bit. And then you want to just boil it for about 10 minutes. Careful with the flame. Don't burn yourself like I just did. Basically, I'm just washing the extra DME out of the cup with the hot water since it's really sticky. There we go. That's all you do. You just boil it for 10 minutes, and I'll see you in 10 minutes. Oh, actually, one more thing. When you get the DME, make sure it's just light, plain DME. You don't want to use like a complex grain. You want the sugars to be simple. That way when they feed on it, it's very easy for them to eat. You don't want something they have to work hard at to eat, because then that will kick them into fermenting gear. So I'll be back in 10 minutes. I have a sanitized flask right here. I'm going to put this in some cold water over here. Shouldn't take too long to cool down since it's such a little bit. And then I built this stir plate. It's not the best. I got to do another one. Maybe I'll make a video out of that. So it's my first try. Works okay. So you just get your flask with your magnet on it, plop it on the stir plate, and let it go for 18 hours. I got saved yeast in my fridge. Right here. I saved this the other day. Still smells good. I'm going to decant the top. Mix it back up. Pour it in. And once my wort comes down, gets chilled, I'll rinse a little bit more into this jar, rinse out the rest of the yeast, make sure it gets in here. Then you just put this on here, make sure the magnet gets in there. Turn it on, and I'll just keep mixing it up all night. It'll suck in oxygen so the yeast can do its thing. And that's how you make a starter. That's it. It really helps making a starter on big beers. You don't really have to do it on small beers. I try and do it every time just because your yeast makes your yeast super healthy and super active. But on a smack pack there's about 100 billion cells of yeast. So by making a starter you usually put it up, double it, around 200 billion to 400 billion. You can do this again too. You have to change the gravity on your starter a little bit because your yeast is already acclimated to 1040, so you usually bump it up a little bit. Since you have more yeast, you need a little bit more gravity. But I'm not exactly positive on the numbers of that. But this is how I make a regular starter for a regular beer. Even if you're making like a double IPA, if you make a really healthy starter, you'll be fine. The yeast will tear right through it. It gives you better flavors. It takes away a lot of the off flavors you'll get from your yeast. So making a starter is definitely beneficial. That and using oxygen will help it out again, but I'll show that to you when I get some oxygen. I don't have any oxygen right now. Since I do such little batches, I'm okay with no oxygen. It doesn't really hurt. It would help to have it, but without it, they're still fine. But doing yeast starters, making your yeast super healthy and super ready to go once it hits the wort, you'll notice a huge difference in your beers just by making starters. They'll be cleaner, crisper. You won't have any off flavors. It makes it's definitely worth it. So give it a shot. Let me know how it works out, and hit the like button. Subscribe if you like these videos, and I will be making some more. There's a new brewery opening up here in New Jersey called Tomfoolery in Hamilton, and I might try and video going to their grand opening, see how that works out. I'm also going to be doing a boat bitter beer soon too. It's fall, but got to start working on next year beers, drinking them on the beach. So we go to the beach every Saturday, so I want to make sure I have a beer dialed in before the summer and spring. So I'm going to be working on that next. Since I brew every week, I'm constantly rotating beer styles and beers. So hit the like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. And you want to take a sanitized piece of foil and just put it on the top of your starter. that. You'll be good. People use a foamy thingy, foam stopper. You can just use a piece of foil. And if you don't have a flask, just use a mason jar. It'll do the same thing. You don't have to have a stir plate. You can just put it on your counter and shake it up every hour or every time you walk by it. It'll do the same thing. You just want to get oxygen in there. So here's what your yeast starter should look like. Not too much krausen, a little bit of bubbles. And it's growing some nice yeast in there.